Welcome to the first episode of Retirement Reimagined, a series of conversations exploring the latest FNB Retirement Survey and what it reveals about the average South African's preparedness and attitude towards retirement. Over our 8 episodes, we'll delve into the survey findings and examine interesting themes, including how second careers and entrepreneurship are becoming important components of retirement planning, the perspectives of people over 60 regarding their retirement journey, a realistic look at the financial requirements for a comfortable retirement, and obstacles preventing us from taking action to meet our retirement goals. I'm Maya Fisher-French, personal finance journalist, and today we're kicking off with an insightful overview of the 2024 FNB Retirement Survey, and I'm joined by Bheki, Mkhize, and Sam Zwane from FNB Wealth and Investments. So thank you, Sam and Bheki, for joining us for this. What's going to really kind of be a big outtake of what was in those retirement results. So maybe, Sam, I'm going to put you on the hot seat up front. What kind of jumped off the page for you when you got the results this year? Let's start with people prior to retirement, those under 60. What things are you seeing that you think, wow, that was interesting?
Well, the first question that we ask people is, do they actually have a retirement plan in place versus not having one? So we picked up about 60% of the people have a retirement plan in place. That number sounds good, but there's some caveats around it. 80% of them say they are on track with their retirement plan. But when you start unpacking and finding out what is it that they're actually investing in, we see that only 25% of those people have a retirement annuity. And they also have, your bank deposits are featuring pretty strongly, and your company pension funds are featuring pretty strongly with regards to those retirement products. So that helps us understand that as much as they have a retirement plan in place, maybe there is a little bit of advice that needs to come into place for them to have, a proper planning when it comes to retirement. And then we start talking about, the average age at which they start, planning for retirement. The good thing is the average age is actually lower. They are saying like 27, at around about age 27, I start planning for retirement. So
I have to tell you that figure surprised me.
Absolutely, Maya, because when you actually compare it with post-retirement, you will see that it's actually different in terms of reality. It might be that those who are pre-retirement, they're probably more informed, they're getting more information around, retirement planning and all that stuff. We also ask the people around, when do they expect to actually retire fully? Is it their intention to retire fully, or they want to actually, do other things when it gets to retirement? And this is coming over and over again. People are actually saying they're not going to retire fully. We see about 48% pre-retirement saying, listen, we're not going to actually retire fully. We want to actually continue working, or, pick up a part-time job, or actually start a secondary career. So that is coming up pretty strong when you're actually looking at the people, pre-retirement.
So, Sam, you've spoken about how people prior to the age of 60 are starting to think about retirement a little bit earlier, at age 27. You've also said they think they're going to have to work past the age of 60 or into retirement age. What are the over 60s telling you? What kind of jumped off the page for you there?
When you actually look at the people in post-retirement, one of the questions that we ask, as I mentioned earlier on, is around the average age at which they start, saving for retirement. You can see that, on the lower side of the spectrum, that is the lower segments, they're actually starting at a much later age, like age 40. That could talk to maybe education was not enough around retirement, and the procrastination factor that has also, been unpacked in some of the episodes. And then you can see that the upper segment, as much as it's lower, around about age 37 or so, it's still quite high, in that. So it doesn't give them enough time for them to actually save, sufficiently for retirement. Our stats also unpack that only 10% of the people actually retire comfortably. Their money is able to cover their basic needs when they get to retirement. And 90% of the people, they actually do not have sufficient money for them to actually cover their basic needs when it comes to retirement. So that talks to the whole story around, making sure that we actually talk to people about retirement, do more education and all those things when it comes to retirement planning. And And the other thing that we're picking up when it comes to post-retirement is that the alternative income sources, they differ between the lower segments and the upper segments. You can see that the upper segments, rental income is featuring strongly as an alternative source of income, investment income and all those things. Those are featuring quite strong in the upper segments. But on the lower segments, you can see, government grants are coming in pretty strong. Income from your children is actually dominant in that aspect. All these things are talking towards them not being able to actually save sufficiently for them to be able to cover, their retirement needs. When you actually go further unpacking and looking at those who actually have retired, healthily, and they're actually in a position to afford, their needs when it comes to retirement, you can see that, paying off debt is one of the things that they actually prioritized with regards to, their retirement planning. Starting early to, plan for retirement is one of those things that came out pretty strongly. Advice, is one of those things that came out very strong when it comes, to retirement planning.
Very interesting. And Bheki, I want to bring you in here because this is the third retirement survey. So I'm quite interested to see how numbers are changing, how trends are changing. And the point that Sam made, that people over 60 said that they started planning for retirement later, yet suddenly we've seen this shift in the under 60s that they're saying they're starting to plan for retirement or have a plan for retirement at a younger age. Do you think that's real? Do you think people really are planning better?
I think it's real in terms of awareness. There's a lot more awareness, but how they're utilizing the little information they have, there's a bit of a gap, I think, because when you drill, it's exactly what Sam was saying. When you drill a little bit deeper, I think even if you look at perceived readiness versus actual readiness, there's still a bit of a gap. I think that education and the stuff around two-pot probably helped with a lot more awareness for people. So that's helped. Broadly speaking, in the survey, yes, you're correct. It's our third year. The nice thing is, I think we're starting to build credibility in the data we have. We see common themes that have come through. So not big jumps, which then tells us that at least this is a lot more accurate. There are shifts. Small shifts here and there, which some of them Sam referred to, but we don't see big jumps. So I think the survey is getting more awareness in the market, a lot more credibility. But some of the things that were picked up in prior surveys around disposable income, that people don't have enough, people are not saving enough, organizations or institutions are probably not doing enough from an education point of view. People don't know where to go or who to speak to. Those are themes that came up in previous years, where they're spending their money versus saving for it or investing for retirement, the type of products they use. We see similar sort of themes. The upper segments, in as much as there's gaps in terms of their retirement planning, they're a lot better than some of the lower income segments, which is where more numbers of people sit. So I think there's a lot more work we need to do on the lower income segments as well. So those are some of the themes, but the point around, I think pre-retirement people have more information, possibly are starting earlier, but they need more advice to get into the right products early from an early stage.
It's going to be so interesting to see the impact of the two-pot on the younger generation now, I think. One of the things that I was thinking when I saw the stats was definitely two-pots raised awareness. But when people say they have a plan, is it enough? Do they even know if it's enough? But also I was wondering if when people over the age of 60 are saying we started later, it could be that they cashed in. So they cashed in their retirement at 35. 30 is a very classic age, right? First job change, cash in retirement. That can't happen to this generation. If you're 25 now and you get to the age of 30 and you're changing jobs and you want to cash in, you can't cash in. You can only take the savings portion. Do you think it's going to play out? That'll be an interesting stat to watch.
I think that's going to be something very good for people for their retirement and for the industry as a whole. I know in the short term people were worried about the initial cash outs, but over the long term there's no doubt that people are going to have more, because your point is correct. The biggest destroyer of sort of retirement value for people that were employed was changing jobs, and the people that say they don't have enough because almost 90% of people actually cash out when they change jobs prior to two-pot. That amount, that 2/3 that's going to remain there will make a massive difference to retirement planning for people. So I think it's definitely going to be positive for the younger people now who are starting out work and have sort of compulsory saving through their employer.
So one of the things that I found quite interesting in the survey as well, and it didn't actually surprise me, it was the level of anxiety around retirement planning. Now, even for someone like me, who has a pretty good understanding how these products work, right? I talk about this, I write about it. It can just feel overwhelming. Like, what's the number? Where should I invest? How much do I need? Sam, maybe you can pick that up. What do you think is driving the anxiety? What did you see coming out from the survey when people were responding to that?
Absolutely. I think if you look at both pre as well as post-retirement, that level of anxiety is there. People are anxious. Am I saving enough? What am I saving in? Are the instruments that I'm saving in the right type of instruments? We see that mostly as well with the lower segments. So the people in the lower segments, those who are struggling to actually get advice, they're actually more anxious than those on the upper segments who actually have access to this advice. So you were asking me, what is actually driving that? It's knowledge, the level of knowledge that you actually have regarding this retirement solution. So we can pick up that those who have actually got access to advice, they're less anxious than those who actually don't have access to advice, because they don't even know if they're using the right instrument for saving for retirement. Are they saving sufficiently for retirement? What should they do when they're changing jobs and all those things when it comes to retirement planning? But those who've actually got a retirement advisor, they're actually less anxious when it comes to those. And then we take that very same analysis, we go into post-retirement, and then we see that those who've actually saved sufficiently for retirement, their level of anxiety is actually lower than those who have not saved sufficiently for retirement. And then again, it then calls back the things that they've done, paying off debt, which is something that is advice-led, starting off early, that is advice-led. You're not withdrawing your retirement when you're actually changing jobs. Thank God to two-pot, you can withdraw everything now. So that is advice-led as well. So you can see that, having that guidance, it helps a lot with regards to, the people being less anxious when it comes to retirement planning. One of the things that we actually unpack when we get towards the end of the survey is around, the role of the bank and the role of the different products when it comes to retirement planning. One of the things that they actually say a lot is that, going into the bank is actually a trusted source for them to actually get information around retirement. So making sure that there's enough information there, our experts are able to actually talk to them around retirement planning will actually help to actually reduce those levels of anxiety. Simplicity around the solutions that we bring about when it comes to retirement planning is coming out strongly there, that if these products can be much simpler, they actually want more around that. And then, controlling the fees and not actually being extractive when it comes to the fees that we charge when it comes to retirement is that other highlighting factor that is out there, whereby people say, listen, control those fees, make sure that you're aligned with my interests when it comes to this, retirement journey.
I couldn't agree more with those two statements, especially on fees. And I think that is a big part of driving down, improving people's outcomes is obviously the more that you're able to invest and keep in your investment really, really helps. Bheki, I want to come to you because another big trend that we've seen is this, and Sam spoke to it, working later. People are not looking to retire as early as they used to. And I don't know if you followed it all, but National Treasury, as part of the cost-cutting measures, was provided early retirement for government employees. It's not being taken up. They're having to cut the budget for that because people, I think, are starting to realize they don't have enough money to retire. And we saw that as well very strongly in this year's results.
Correct. I think one is people don't have enough, but two, I mean, if people are living longer and people get to, let's say, 60 and they still feel they can work and they want to be active and carry on. We've seen quite a few employers in the market moving up their retirement age as a consequence of, people are living longer and are still active at sort of retirement age. But I think a big point that you mentioned is around people just don't have enough. And when you speak to some of them who are getting to retirement, they'll say, I can't afford to retire. Either I could take up a second career, are going to study again. Some are going to study AI and data and those type of careers where they want to continue to working. And we see in the higher income segments, some of them are taking up board roles, etc. But they don't want to be inactive with retirement. It's no longer the period where you get to retirement and you just chill. And I think that's gonna, as we go on and as we, I mean, AI and some of those things are going to allow us to have, medical attention at an individual level, knowing the DNA of a person, and predictions are that's going to just lead to people being able to live a lot longer. So I think
Run out
that
of money
trend,
earlier.
possibly, which means they have to carry on working.
Yeah.
That trend will probably continue.
And maybe just to pick up that point as well, Sam, was what concerned me in the stats is everyone's saying they want to work longer, expect to work longer, but very few people knew their company's retirement age.
Absolutely, very interesting stat. And when you actually look at most people, their formal retirement is basically a compulsory sort of retirement. It's because your employer is saying, now you have to stop working. It is not aligned to their expectation. That is why you are seeing that informal retirement age is actually shifting up higher to around about age 66 or so, whereby people take up a secondary career, they actually work part-time, or they find other ways of actually supplementing their income in retirement, as mentioned by Bheki, because people have not saved sufficiently for retirement. And they actually have an understanding that, I might actually live longer because they probably seen a relative or so, living slightly longer. And they're like, will this actually sustain me to age, 80 or something to that effect? So that's actually coming up pretty strongly when we look at the retirement age. And yes, it is interesting that people actually don't know, what is their compulsory retirement age when it comes to their work. Because I think maybe the psychological fact is that they tell themselves that they're going to retire, at a point in time. They've got this, secondary, career or secondary income they're thinking about post-retirement. So retirement is not something that resonates with them. So it's a cultural shift around how people view retirement.
Well, thank you both for the insights, and we're definitely going to be unpacking these in each episode as we go forward, and just really delving into some of these statistics in more detail. And for our listeners, I mean, for me, really what struck me a lot from the survey was this idea that people feel like they need to be planning for retirement more. I think there's a little bit less understanding how much they need for retirement in that, and I think that's definitely something we need to be focusing on. But this idea of retirement, you don't retire anymore at 65 or 60, certainly not 60, maybe not even 65. And what does that mean for your retirement planning? And is retirement planning not just about investing, but also about investing in yourself? And I think those are some of the themes that we're going to be unpacking. And in the next episode, please join us, because we're also going to be asking the question of whether retirement is a luxury, and investing and planning for retirement, whether that is a luxury, and how do we do that given the living costs that we have and the rising costs of living today. So thank you.